We do not care.
Welcome to the fifth official episode of the We Do Not Care podcast. We hope you're doing well. We're able to watch the divisional rounds, the Natty as well. Today we're going to go through our 2025-2026 offensive skill position rankings, which includes the running backs, the wide receivers, the tight ends, all good stuff like that. And then additionally our MVP and LVP on offense. So starting with our running backs, since Caleb can't catch the ball, Johnson was practically non-existent all year. It's really just between KG and Warren. I love that they were a dynamic duo this year. I really hope we can retain Kenny. He was just a net positive. He was great. Just to start, he was clearly our MVP on offense. Sort of everything ran out of the backfield with him. Definitely a safety blanket for Aaron. Definitely appreciate his contributions as a free agent that we just brought in. I didn't have any high expectations. He was shadowing Saquon last year, but really glad to see his impact. And he led the team in touchdowns this year, I believe, and he was just kind of everywhere. I think if I obviously I have Caleb at my three. If I had to rank those two, I thought Jalen was great this year, but I think the fact that they were sort of splitting reps, they were both on and off the field. Also, Jalen, not his fault to his own, but was also dealing with some illnesses throughout the year and a couple of injuries. I think you just have to have KG at one. I think he was so consistent. I think it's very close, and I think Warren is definitely the better runner. I think he's tougher, but I think that KG is just more versatile, and he can just be used in a lot of different ways. So what are your thoughts on that?
Got to give a shout out to Deke. He had said that he wanted to see Jalen Warren on the field more in the passing game, and we really didn't see Jalen Warren as much this year in the passing game because Kenneth Gainwell was our most reliable receiver for the majority of the season. And so, I think without his help in the receiving game, it would have been a tight race between him and Warren as pure runners as to who should be, given the one. But with what he was able to provide in the receiving game, I think the edge kind of has to go with him this year. And so tough to not see Warren on the field more. I don't really know. There were certain drives where Kenneth Gainwell would just be on the field the entire time and wouldn't even see Warren. And so some of that is we don't really know as fans. Was he injured? Was it just preference on what Aaron wanted? Was it Arthur Smith just not utilizing him? So kind of tough to know. But they rushed for almost 2,000 yards collectively, and were pretty effective. Relative to how we've rushed the ball previously. So glad to see that they were able to get some production going, and it gives me hope for the offensive line for years to come, especially as we have some young guys like Troy and Mason and Broad when he comes back.
The Broadfather. No, definitely. It's definitely a change compared to Najee, who we love. Sad to see him go to LA, but I think it was just, it was time, and we just sort of we need to modernize. We need to get faster in the backfield, whether that's at quarterback or running back as well. I really like sort of what Detroit has with Gibbs and Montgomery, just like the speed and toughness, which I think KG and Warren both bring. Now moving on to the wide receivers, including DK or DeKalen dropped the ball, Metcalf / puncher fan, and then Calvin one catch a game at Austin. The rest don't really deserve nicknames. They kind of suck. But shout out Thielen. He was kind of clutch all year. He had some big catches in that Houston game, a couple in the Browns game. MVS, I mean, 9 targets. It's just like that was really hard to watch. Roman Wilson, I don't even know what to say. I think he just pissed in someone's Cheerios, and I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with him. I would love to see him in the offense next year because I do think he has talent, and I do think although he's had limited snaps, he's been able to display that. Sometimes with obviously those touchdowns being late, but still touchdowns are touchdowns. He's still making those plays. He still had some nice catches this year. I do think he has potential. I really don't want to have back-to-back third-round busts with him and Caleb Johnson. Who knows? Next year, maybe Caleb, can be utilized in a different type of offense because I think obviously he's very talented coming out of Iowa, and it's just very sad to see that not sort of translate to the pros, but we don't know. But yeah, in terms of my ranking, not even a wide receiver, but I'm going to put Darnell Washington at my one. He was the best catch passer all year, without a doubt. There's just no rebuttal to that. Not only that, but probably the best blocker. DK doesn't deserve that. He's getting paid however many million a year, 30 million, 40, whatever it is, and just drop balls after drop balls, sort of getting Pickens that sort of locker room cancer or toxicness sort of out of the way, we thought we'd be able to mature and move on. I feel like DK was not that much different with the punching of the fan, with all unsportsmanlike penalties in the end zone. You're a big guy, and like even watching one play that really stood out to me was that play against the Bears when Mason threw that deep ball. I just don't understand how he doesn't come down with that, with his frame, with his body, with his hands. It just doesn't make much sense. I just don't think the effort was there all year. So I'm very disappointed in that. But obviously, in terms of contribution, I'll have DK at my two. With my three, Calvin didn't do that much this year, to be honest. He didn't. And I really feel like, similar with Roman, in the right offense, he could be utilized so much more, because I've seen Calvin get open. We see he can make plays. You see in the Baltimore game with the go-ahead touchdown. So hopefully that's something more we can see in the future. Behind him, I have Thielen, and MVS is like in the depths of hell. I don't even want to talk about him. He just sucks. He and Jonnu, I don't even know what they're doing, but they should not be on this team next year. I really hope they're not. I hope that contract is revised or just terminated or whatever. But if MVS or John is on this team next year, I'm going to be very unpleased personally. So what are your thoughts on the wide receiver group?
So a couple things stood out based on your comments. One, Omar Khan historically has been very much a best available guy. So in the draft, beyond round, really just beyond round four, it's like that is what he's looking to. So even if there's a guy that we really want, if there's someone who just is screaming best available, he will pull the trigger on that person. So I think when we're drafting linebackers in the sixth or seventh round or in the fifth round, maybe we need to just take three receivers this year. And hopefully one, if not two of them, pays off. I expect them to take two receivers this year, and we will obviously do a more in-depth breakdown of a mock draft, at least one, if not two. But they need to take some shots on receiver. And I'm not even saying that this necessarily is a great receiver class. There are definitely some names in there that we see them, being interested in. We'll see if they fall to the 21st. If not, maybe they trade up. They have a lot of capital this year, but that's definitely one thing to consider. Beyond that, this team was completely different. And I know he's a tight end without Darnell Washington on the field this year. Just a completely different team, not only in the run game, but he's one of the only guys that we would throw to over the middle, unless it's Pat Fryermuth with the game on the line and Arthur Smith finally realizes that we are capable of throwing over the middle. So those are two things that really stand out. I think going into next year, hopefully we'll have a new OC who is more invested in growing young players. And so even if we take a chance on a few guys in this draft, maybe they're not NFL ready yet, but we can kind of develop them. Where was Roman Wilson this year? We didn't have a stacked wide receiver room, and certain times during the year, it just wasn't working. And we did not change it up. We just reverted to what wasn't working week after week. You saw it in the Browns game. We're one of the few teams in the NFL where we just don't get our receivers involved. We rely on our running backs. It's not a discredit to them. They're incredible. They did a great job in the receiving game this year. But your first option for receiver should not be your running back. And we don't have a CMC on our team. Maybe
Yeah.
at that point, that's someone you're looking to make a huge play. But we don't have that guy. And I love our running backs. And I hope that we bring back Jalen and Kenny. And I think they could definitely be serviceable and great for us next year, both of them. But, we need to lock in and focus on getting wide receivers that whoever our quarterback is will trust and be able to grow a relationship with, whether it's Will Howard or we bring back Aaron somehow, or it's some other guy, that can come in and feel as though they have weapons and feel comfortable. We need a security blanket beyond our tight end, and DK is being paid so much money. I believe he's the fourth highest paid receiver in the league right now. And to have his production this year and to be suspended for 2 games, which almost cost us the division, is completely unacceptable. And I think a lot of Steelers fans are struggling with the idea that we gave that much money to a guy who'd never played a game in the black and gold, and we have to live with that contract. Same thing with TJ. Not to get too off track here, but we need production from these guys that we're paying boatloads of money to. If you are being paid this much money, there is an expectation that you will be one of the best players, if not the best player, on your side of the ball. So I think that's going to be a huge thing to look out for next year, is these guys honoring the commitment that was made to them by giving them the money that they felt and their agents felt they deserved.
I agree with you. I think sort of in that Browns game that you're talking about, we don't have Najee Harris. We don't have a guy that can grind out those 4 or 5, those tough yards right there. Um, and it sucks because obviously Warren and Kenny are both very versatile and can move all over the place. But against a really tough D line like that, when you're struggling to get down the field, someone like Najee, someone like Derrick Henry, and again, Kenny and Warren are great backs, but they don't have that size. That's why you really hope to bring someone like Caleb Johnson in, someone who does have that size and be able to utilize him in those moments, which they didn't utilize him, and he also just hadn't shown enough to really deserve those snaps, to be honest. So I definitely agree with you. I think looking towards the draft, there's going to be a lot of big wide receivers on that board, and we're going to have to look and see what we can do to improve the squad, because that's definitely necessary in order to improve this passing game and just this offense as a whole. So now moving to the tight end, speaking of Darnell, I have him at 1. I think that's sort of indisputable. I think he's one of the biggest parts and pieces of this offense. He keeps it moving. The offense practically runs through him. Behind him, I'm gonna put Connor Hayward, honestly, and I love Pat, but just strictly off of Connor Hayward's contribution, whether that be on 1 yard plays or in the end zone, whatever it is, just punching it in. Also in the past, we've seen him recover a bunch of onside kicks. Really appreciate that. That's something that's definitely underappreciated, being able to catch that ball and just dive on it. Uh, Pat's at my 3. I'd love to have him at my 2. I'd love to have him at 1, considering he's getting paid $13 million a year, whatever it is. And honestly, I just don't think it's his fault that he's being underutilized, because we see when he catches the ball, he makes plays, he gets open, he helps the offense. So that's disappointing. I hope next year, whether it's with the Rams passing game coordinator or someone else, we can sort of unlock his potential, use him more. And then in the last and final spot, obviously none other than notorious Jonnu Smith. I just don't understand the fall off between the Miami Dolphins. I mean, Mike McDaniel is just a genius. Gadsden in LA for the Chargers, he's going to have 1,000 yards next year without a doubt, 10 touchdowns. He should at least. I don't know how you make someone. I just don't understand. If it's injuries, I don't understand that fall off. It's really unfortunate to see. I expected more in the offseason coming into this season in terms of his contribution, and I was very, very underwhelmed and disappointed. So I really hope we do not renew his contract. He's just been a net negative all year. He hasn't been able to block. He hasn't been able to catch. He hasn't been able to get open. So I think it's just time to move on from him. So what are your thoughts on the tight end rankings?
I think with Arthur Smith, one of the things that he does that really fits the Steelers mold is just his stubbornness. And so to not be able to adapt in today's game when there are some of these young coordinators that are coming up with plays, or even some offensive, play calling head coaches like Liam Cohen with the Jaguars and Ben Johnson with the Bears that are coming up with plays that we just haven't seen. It's
Yeah.
just frustrating to watch, to see something not be successful and to continue to rely upon that and not think maybe we need to change things up here. So I think Arthur Smith kind of had his guys this year, and maybe he's just not a Pat Fryermuth fan. I mean, Pat, other than when he's being thrown a hospital ball and is being clobbered after somehow catching the ball, is one of the best tight ends in this league with yards after receiving. He will always find a way to make a big play. He's kind of like Warren in that way. They somehow find a way to make something happen after catching the ball, and they're just dangerous. And so I think on another team, he would be incredible, and he would be very reliable, and he would be a security blanket. And who knows? Maybe another quarterback comes in next year and they say, Pat's great. He needs to get the ball more, and they look for him. And that's at the quarterback's discretion to choose who he wants to throw the ball to. Unfortunately, he just hasn't really seen the opportunities. Darnell has to be given my, number 1 ranking, not only for his impact in the passing game because he's so difficult to guard, but then also in the running game. I mean, our team is just so different when he's not on the field. He just is so impactful and causes so much disruption for the defense to have to account for him, whether he's a blocker and then getting free, he's chipping someone and getting free for a catch, or he's, manhandling defensive ends who are way more than him, but he's just able to pile drive them. I mean, he is incredible. And I really hope that, he's a Steeler for a long time. Jonnu had a few touchdowns this year, made some contributions, but really just fell off. And I think, like you were saying, got to give credit to Mike McDaniel for the way that he was able to unlock his capabilities. I mean, Jonnu on the Dolphins, he was a Pro Bowler. I mean, he was incredible. And it's not like he was a Pro Bowler for name value. he was a Pro Bowler for being that good because he's not like a Travis Kelsey name or a Kittle name, that type of name. He got in because he had the stats to back it up. And Connor Hayward, like you were saying, he made some great contributions this year. People might not value those onside kick recoveries or tush push plays as much as we might, but he's a valued player on this team and he made some great contributions. And even if it's to keep Cam Hayward happy, regardless of if he comes back, these past few years, Cam's production has been incredible at his age. And so if having Connor on the team makes him better, I'm all for it because he's definitely earned his right to be on this team. And have to hope that with a more innovative offensive coordinator, with someone who is purely looking at this team as what weapons will help me and which weapons will help me unlock the potential of this offense to reach the heights that it can, the maximum potential that it can, that they will, look at it objectively. They won't have any favoritism. They won't be stubborn. If something's not working, they will adapt and they will make sure that they are constantly looking for ways to make sure that this offense is reaching the potential that it has. And so interested to see how this plays out next year. But tight ends were valuable this year. Can't say enough for the impact that Darnell had, not only in the passing game, but also in our run game. He was a monster. And you could see it anytime he got hurt. And when he went off the field, the commentators would even say, the rest of this game, I don't know if the Steelers can really run the ball the way they have. They don't have Darnell on the field. It's just a different game. So, huge impact this year from the tight ends. And hopefully next year they'll be even more impactful if they can unlock Muth earlier than last minute drives in the fourth quarter.
Definitely. I think, like you're saying, I think Hayward has sort of shut up or quiet some of our nepotism comments from last year. But granted, I think those were kind of fair because I don't think he did that much last year in terms of the occasional tush push and maybe an onside kick recovery. I think that almost anyone can pick up that 1 yard. We like to put him in that scenario, and for some reason, like to put his big brother behind. I don't know why, but we do. But I do appreciate his availability and his willingness to sort of be a Swiss Army knife to work on special teams or to work as a fullback or for the tush pushes or recovering the onside kicks, whatever it is. So I think we can both agree that moving on, KG is probably our MVP of the year. Just the offense sort of ran through him. I mean, similar to Darnell, without those two guys, I don't know where we would be. But what do you have for your LVP of the year, least valuable player?
Well, an honorable mention to my MVP would be Roman Wilson, just for name value off that one. But I mean, he definitely gets a nomination for LVP, just no impact. And it's like Omar Khan just cannot hit in the third round. He just can't.
To
And
miss.
so,
We had three third rounders this year, whatever it is. So I mean, I'm just gonna write all those off. I feel like,
I mean, maybe we need to trade up somehow and use those three to get two in the second or something
yeah,
because he just cannot hit in the third round. But you would think a guy like that from Michigan who talked as much smack as he did to Marvin Harrison Jr. in college would be able to come into the NFL and make an impact. So, have to hope that he can somehow in this offense find a role and find a role where he can be productive. But also, I just think with Janu late in the year, we don't make our offensive, you know, playmakers' roles necessarily easy when we're throwing them dump balls beyond behind the line of scrimmage and asking them to make a play. But you could see Warren doing it. You could see Kenneth Gainwell doing it. You could say even DK doing it, catching a ball behind the line of scrimmage and making a play. And we were at that Texans game. Johnny would just catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage and just get he wouldn't even try and make a move. It was just completely plowed by the defensive line or by whatever DB was there to meet him. He met his maker on every single one of those receptions. So, I mean, I think both of them, it's just tough. Roman Wilson did not get the opportunities, and it's one of the weirdest stories that we've ever had as a franchise where Tomlin's saying, we got a lot of guys that are out. This is a great week for Roman to get his opportunities.
no
And
snaps.
I think he played 9 snaps. He didn't get a target.
Yeah,
So, we'll have to see going into next year, not only who we bring back, but how these guys step into a new role. I think seeing a lot of guys saying that we should tank next year and have a Manning, shout out Joey, throwing the football to us, you
no,
know, but we're not that type of franchise. And Art Rooney is way too stubborn to enable that. And it's not like a team is ever going to announce that they're tanking. but even quietly behind the scenes, we're just not that type of team. So I think we're gonna continue to try and right the ship with the guys that we do have and try and bolster this roster that we do have. And if that means bringing in some young guys that can provide a spark, then great. And if we have to take a step back before we can take a step forward, I think Steelers fans want to kind of rewrite this whole story because these past few years, it has just been so tough making the playoffs or not making the playoffs, but having that winning record and thinking at some point during the year, this team's coming around. This team's going to be a threat, and then they just aren't. And then they just fall apart at some point during the year. So whatever we need to do to kind of break that cycle and start fresh, I'm for. And I really hope that they bring in some young guys who have great ideas and aren't kind of locked into this mesh of having all this success. Even if it means that it doesn't work out, think about it. If we bring in the Rams passing game coordinator and he's terrific, in a few years we'll lose him to a head coaching role. And a lot of teams are saying,
Yeah.
maybe that's why you bring in a Ben Johnson or a Liam Cohen, because then you have that guy locked in. The Steelers, on the other hand, foundationally have been built on their defense.
Yeah, I think like what you're saying with LVP, John is definitely that for me. I think Roman Wilson is sort of creeping up as well. I really wish Roman could have had a better impact. This was kind of, I guess, his rookie year. You see last year he deals with the injury, and now he's coming back. I expected more. I really did, and I am disappointed. But I'm not giving up on him yet. We make these jokes. I really do think he's a talented kid. I do think he has so much potential, really, in the slot or as a deep threat, whatever it could be. And I think that can be unlocked, and I really hope it is. Like you said, whoever comes in as OC. So yeah, I think that's a wrap. Thank you guys for watching. We'll have our defensive position rankings coming out soon. Here we go, Steelers.